各位媒体朋友、女士们、先生们，大家上午好。今天我们非常荣幸地邀请李克强总理同大家见面，并回答大家的提问。有请李总理。
Friends from the media, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Today we have the privilege to invite Premier Li Keqiang to meet you and answer your questions. I would like to first give the floor to the Premier.
首先感谢记者朋友们为中国两会报道所付出的辛劳。今天的记者会总是时间有限的，就请提问吧。
Friends from the press, thank you for your hard work in covering the MPC and CPPCC sessions. Time is limited. Let's get started right away.
好，现在开始提问。霍宇聪，路透社记者，第四排。对，那位男士，对。
总理你好 ，Good morning. I'm from Reuters. Last year, China took a number of measures to ease monetary conditions to encourage banks to lend more. China also cut taxes and fees. This year, China is promising more monetary easing, more tax cuts, and more infrastructure spending. Are China's economic problems bigger than previously thought? And if the economic slowdown doesn't stop, would China consider taking more aggressive measures such as lifting property curbs or cutting benchmark interest rates? Thank you very much.
总理先生，早上好。路透社记者提问。去年，中国采取了一系列措施来放松货币条件，中国还加大了减税降费的力度。今年，中国表示将进一步放宽货币条件，将进一步减税降费，还要加大基础设施的投资。请问中国经济面临的问题是否比之前预想的更为严重？如果经济增速放缓继续持续下去，中国是否会考虑采取更加有力的举措，包括取消房地产限制和降低基准利率等？
有记者朋友喜欢单刀直入，那我也开诚布公。中国经济确实遇到了新的下行压力，现在世界经济都在放缓，就在这1个多月期间，几大国际权威机构都在调低世界经济增长的预期。因为中国适度调低增速预期目标，用的呢是区间调控的方式，既和去年经济增速相衔接，也表明我们不会让经济运行划出合理的区间，可以说给市场发出的是稳定的信号。
You went straight to the point in your question, and I will not beat about the bush. It is true that China's economy has encountered new downward pressure against a larger backdrop of a slower global economic growth. In the past about 1 month, several major international organizations have adjusted downward their forecast for global growth this year. We have adjusted, as appropriate, downward our projected GDP growth target for 2019 and set it at a target range. This is compatible with the GDP growth rate we achieved last year. It is also consistent with our determination of not allowing major economic indicators sliding out of its proper range. By this way, we have sent a message of stability to the market.
去年，在以习近平同志为核心的党中央坚强领导下，以习近平新时代中国特色社会主义思想为指导，中国全国上下奋力拼搏，在推进供给侧结构性改革的进程中，又面对国际贸易保护主义抬头的背景，我们能实现6.6%的增速，的确是来之不易了，90万亿呀！在这个基础上，今年预计6.0到6.5，但是高基数、大总量上的稳定，可以说本身就是进了。
Last year, under the strong leadership of the CPC Central Committee, with Comrade Xi Jinping at its core and guided by Xi Jinping thought on socialism with Chinese characteristics for a new era, people across China made a strong, united effort to advance our supply-side structural reforms, and we achieved a 6.6% GDP growth. Against a larger backdrop of growing protectionism in the international environment, China's GDP aggregate reached 90 trillion RMB yuan. Our projected target for GDP growth this year is 6 to 6.5%. It is going to be a growth on top of a very large base figure. Keeping steady growth of China's economy in itself is important progress.
当然，应对新的下行压力要有有力举措。一种办法是搞量化宽松，超发货币，大规模提高赤字率，所谓大水漫灌，萝卜快了不洗梨，一时可能有效，但可以带来后遗症，所以不可取。那么我们还是要坚持通过激发市场的活力来顶住下行的压力。前些年我们也遇到下行的压力，我们走的就是推动市场发展，因为市场的活力力量扩大了，发展的力量必然增强。
We must take strong measures to cope with the current downward pressure on China's economic growth. One possible option is to resort to quantitative easing, issuing excessive money supply, expanding budget deficit. These are the possible measures. However, such an indiscriminate approach may work in the short run, but it also may lead to future problems. Thus, it is not a viable option. Our choice is to energize market players to counter the downward pressure. We encountered economic slowdown in the past several years, and the measures we have taken is to boost the vitality of the market so that we will have a stronger dynamism for development.
现在中国市场主体已经超过1亿户，把他们的活力激发出来，这个力量可以说是难以估量的。我们还是要正规有恒继续推进减税、降费、减政，培育新动能，放宽市场准入，营造公平竞争的环境，一系列的措施，为市场松绑，为企业腾位，为百姓解忧，把他们的创造力释放出来，我们一定能够保持经济运行在合理区间，而且推动高质量发展。
China now has over 100 million market entities, When their vitality is fully unleashed, there will be incalculable energies created. We must keep our policies stable and ensure their continuity. We will continue to cut taxes and fees, streamline our administration, foster new drivers of growth, broaden market access, and level the playing field for all market players. In this way, we will be able to lift the curbs on the market, free up space for companies, and resolve concerns for our people. We will be able to generate tremendous creativity in this process, and this will also put us in a strong position to keep major economic indicators within a proper range and achieve high-quality development.
当然，今年不确定的因素不少，我们还要有更多的应对准备。我们留有了政策空间啊，比如我们今年提高识字率0.2个点，没有超过国际上说的所谓3%的警戒线，而且我们还可以运用像存款准备金率、利率等数量型的价格工具，不是放松银根，而是让实体经济更有效的得到支持。不管发生什么样新的情况，我们都会立足当前，兼顾长远，保持中国经济稳定和保持中国经济长期向好的趋势不变，都是很重要的。中国经济会始终成为世界经济的一个重要的稳定之锚。谢谢。
We certainly need to take strong measures to cope with rising uncertainties that we face this year. We have policy reserve for that purpose. For example, we raised our budget deficit ratio for this year by only 0.2 percentage point, and our budget deficit ratio is still below the international warning line of 3%. In addition, we can also resort to other instruments like required reserve ratios and interest rates. We are not going for monetary easing, but trying to provide effective support to the real economy. In the light of new circumstances, we are going to stay firmly grounded in China's realities and take a long-term view. We will work our best to keep China's economic growth stable and also maintain the sound momentum of our economic development for the long run. I have confidence that China's economy will remain an anchor of stability for the global economy. Thank you.
谢谢，请继续提问。中区第4排那位女士，第4排，哎。
谢谢主持人，总理您好，我是财新周刊财新网记者，我想跟您提问关于减税降费的问题。近些年来呢，中国政府出台了一系列关于减税降负的举措，但是不少企业家反映，企业的税费依然很重。今年呢，政府出台了更大规模的减税降费，我想请问您，您认为企业能得到实惠吗？财政可持续吗？谢谢。
财新 Mr. Premier, my question is about tax and fee cuts. In the past several years, the Chinese government took a series of steps to reduce taxes and fees. However, some business people still feel that the tax burden levied on businesses is still quite heavy. This year, the government plans deeper tax and fee cuts. I would like to ask if you think real benefits can be truly delivered to companies, and is our country's public finance sustainable?
近几年我们运用营改增这个载体，每年给企业减费、减税1万亿，3年3万亿。 应该说我们减税的规模是比较大的。今年下决心要进行更大规模的减税降费，把增值税和单位社保交费要降下来，降出2万个亿的红利。这可以说是应对当前经济下行的一个十分重要的关键性的举措。
In the past several years, we worked to replace business tax with value-added tax. For the past 3 years, on an average annual basis, we cut taxes by 1 trillion RMB yuan. This is a fairly large-scale tax reduction. This year, we plan to engage in larger-scale tax and fee cuts. We will make reductions in the VAT and localities' social insurance contributions. This will be delivering a dividend of 2 trillion RMB yuan to our companies. And this is also a very important measure in countering the downward pressure.
这样做有利于公平，因为按照规则，各类所有制企业普遍得到应该减的税费，而且效率很高，一竿子插到底，插到市场主体。我们4月1号要减增值税，5月1号减社保费，到时全面推开。我看还没有其他的办法比这种办法给企业带来的感受更公平和有效。
This is a fair and effective means. The same rules will be enforced, and companies of all types of ownership will stand to benefit as required. It will reach directly to all market players. The plan is to cut the VAT rates starting from April the 1st, the localities' social insurance contributions from May the 1st. We believe that no other way may work as fairly and efficiently as this one for companies.
今年更大规模的减税降费，实际上是一项重大的改革，重要的抉择。之前我们反复测算，是有多种方案的。有一类，那就是今后几年每年把增值税再降1个点，但是在当前情况下，企业可能感受不深，所以我们下决心把制造业的主要行业占增值税的50%，明显的降低3个点，把建筑业等行业，可以说部分行业降1个点，其他所有行业只减不增。由于我们税制设置的原因可能在推行当中，有些行业因为抵扣少了，税收有增加的可能，我们也做了认真的准备，就是对他们加大抵扣的力度，用补丁的办法，而且对所有的中小微企业普惠性减税，确保只减不增。我们还要把原规定的原则上收20%的单位社保交费降到16%。
Our larger scale tax and fee cuts are a very important reform measure and a crucial decision. Before we took this decision, we did thorough calculations. In the past, there were several different plans, to be honest. For example, one of the plans was to cut the VAT rates by just 1 percentage point each year in the following several years, but that may not bring as much benefit to companies as the current plan. Well, under this current plan, the VAT rates for manufacturing and other for manufacturing will be cut by 3%. Manufacturing sector accounts for 50% of all VAT. For construction and other related sectors, the VAT rate will be cut by 1%. In a word, we will work to ensure that the tax burden levied on companies will only go down instead of increasing. In this process, due to the setup of our tax code, with fewer deductions, maybe for some companies' sectors, their tax payments may see a little bit of increase. To address this problem, we mean to make further tax deductions. In this process, the tax burdens on all micro, small and medium-sized companies will be significantly eased. All in all, as I said before, the tax burden on all companies will only come down instead of going up. Moreover, we will cut the locality's social insurance contribution rate from the current 20% to 16%.
减税是要减收的。我们今年财政安排，支出和 GDP 增长同步，要确保民生重点领域、三大攻坚战等支出只增不减。那人们就会问：你钱从哪里来啊？你赤字只增加了0.2个百分点啊，填不上这窟窿啊，怎么办？就是政府要过紧日子，不仅要压缩一般性公共预算的支出，而且动存量力。所以中央政府下决心，从特定的金融机构、一些央企增加他们的利润入国库，而且把长期积淀的资金收回。我们筹集了1万亿。我们还要求地方政府也要挖钱。其实地方政府配套是5比5，他即便筹不到相应的钱，中西部地区我们给适当的转移支付支持，但是他必须把自己的功课做足，要确保坚决的动存量力，割自己的肉。所以我说这是一项刀刃向锐、壮士断腕的改革。
Cutting taxes and fees means fewer fiscal revenues. This year, our fiscal spending will grow in tandem with GDP growth rate. We also need to work to ensure that government spending in key areas related to people's lives and in fighting the 3 critical battles will only increase. Then it begs the question, where does the money come from for the tax and fee cuts? You are going to increase your budget deficit ratio by just 0.2%. That is not enough to make up for the shortfall. In a word, the government is going to tighten its belts. The government will further cut back on its general expenditures. At the same time, it will dig into existing interests. The central government will ask designated financial institutions and some enterprises directly under the central government to turn in a larger share of their profits to the state coffers. The central government will also take back those fiscal funds that have long stayed unused. Through these means, we have put together 1 trillion yuan. Local governments also need to do their homework and contribute. the split between central and local governments will be roughly 50-50. But for those localities, for example, in central and western regions, or with fiscal constraints, transfer payments from central government will be made to these places. Well, our determination is to dig into the existing interests, and this would be like turning the blade of knife to the government itself. That is why I said this is a key reform that requires exceptional courage and determination.
刚才记者问，这样做你财政可持续吗？这我们也是认真算过账的。我们是给制造业、也基础行业、中小企业带动就业面最大的领域，明显让它减税，实际上是在放水养鱼、培育财源。我们前几年营改增过程当中，先也是减收了，但是很快财政税基扩大了，收入增长了。现在看，我们还要调整国民经济的收入分配结构，这也是一项改革。从趋势看，应该给实体经济、给这些企业，让他们在国民收入分配的这个蛋糕当中啊做大，这样可以更多的带动就业，让就业人群增加收入。那么政府就要过紧日子，就要让利，政府的存量的利益也要动，得罪人也要动，让利于企业，让利于民，这样啊，财政才更可持续。反过来讲，可能就要打问号了。所以我们这样做，不是说在预知未来，恰恰是在培育未来。
You asked if our public finance is sustainable. Let me tell you that the government did its due diligence. We are going to cut VAT rates for manufacturing and other basic sectors, and we are going to make things much easier for our small and medium-sized companies, the largest providers of job opportunities in our country. They will see their taxes meaningfully reduced. This will create a more enabling environment for our companies and also expand our tax sources. When we started with the VAT reform several years ago, we also first saw a dip in government fiscal revenues. However, it didn't take long for us to see regained increase in fiscal revenues as we saw the expansion of our tax base. It is also a reform that will make adjustments to our structure of national income distribution. If the share that goes to companies in national income distribution is still quite low, but by expanding this share, we are going to energize those market players, create more jobs, and put more money in our people's pocket. To do this, as I said, the government must live on a tight budget and let companies benefit more. We must dig into the established existing interests of the government itself. This is a good way to keep the sustainability of our public finance. This is not something taking an overdraft on our future, but nurturing a better tomorrow.
现在可以说是真金白银已经备好了。有关部门和各级政府都要去落实，绝不能让政策打白条，更不允许变换花样、乱收费来冲击减税降费的成效，还是要让企业、让市场主体切实感受到更大规模减税降费的实实在在的 效果。谢谢。
So these heavyweight policies and measures are all set. Government departments and governments at all levels must fully deliver those policies and measures. There must be no lip service, and we will let the market players test the actual effects of our policies and measures, and there must be no arbitrary charges levied in disguised forms. Eventually, our goal is to deliver concrete benefits to all market entities. Thank you.
好，谢谢，请提下一个问题。东亚日报尹完整，对。
谢谢总理。韩国东亚日报提问：朝美会谈谈崩之后，分析认为朝鲜有可能正在准备恢复发射火箭，朝鲜半岛局势下一步发展还是存在不确定性，中方对此如何看？第二个问题就是中方作为和朝鲜保持战略性沟通、高层来往的邻邦，为了化解朝鲜和美国之间的分歧以及促谈，目前在发挥什么样的建设性作用？谢谢。
동아일보. The second summit between the DPRK and the United States broke down, and after that, there are analyses arguing that there is a possibility for the DPRK to preparing for resumed rocket launch, and there are still uncertainties for the Korean Peninsula situation. How does the Chinese side see the current situation on the peninsula? Another question is, China has stayed in strategic communication with the DPRK and has been working to ease differences between the DPRK and the United States and promoting dialogue between the two parties. What constructive role will China continue to play in this respect?
半岛问题啊，可以说是错综复杂，由来已久，解决起来也不可能一蹴而就。一段时间啊，大家都比较关注河内的朝美会谈。这个会谈呢，双方都还是表示了要继续接触，接触总比不接触好。所以我认为啊，我们还是要保持耐心，要抓住啊机遇，特别是显现出的积极因素，推动呢对话，特别是朝美对话，去实现啊大家都希望得到的成果。中国始终是坚持半岛无核化，这个立场从来没有改变过，也希望呢保持半岛的和平稳定，解决好半岛问题，不仅对北南双方、对地区、对世界都有利。谢谢。
The Korean Peninsula issue is a long-standing and complicated one. It cannot be resolved overnight. Much attention has been paid to the Hanoi summit between the DPRK and the United States. From what I have gathered, both sides have expressed a readiness to stay engaged with each other, and having such kind of engagement is better than no contacts at all. I believe it is important for all parties concerned to stay patient, seize opportunities, especially positive factors, and promote dialogue, especially dialogue between the DPRK and the United States, toward eventual outcomes that we all would like to see. China is committed to a denuclearized Korean Peninsula, and this has been our consistent position. We hope there will be peace and stability on the peninsula. A proper settlement of the peninsula issue is in the interest of both the North and the South. It is also in the regional and global interest. Thank you.
谢谢，请继续提问。南区第5排中间那位男士，对，第5排，
谢谢。总理您好，我是中国新闻社和中国新闻网的记者。我们注意到近几年呢，中国政府一直在着力改善民生，但是呢，在民生领域也会听到一些抱怨。明年就要全面建成小康社会了，除了脱贫之外，民生领域我们能有哪些实实在在的期待？政府对于解决民生问题究竟是怎么考虑的？谢谢。
China News Service. The Chinese government has been taking measures to improve people's lives over the years. However, there are still complaints about the lives and living standards. This next year, we will complete the building of a moderately prosperous society in all respects. So in addition to poverty reduction and alleviation, what concrete progress can we look forward to in all these areas related to people's lives? And what plan does the government have to improve the people's well-being?
你问的问题很大，因为民生本身就是天大的事情，要做的事情很多。我们还是要在发展经济的过程当中持续的改善民生，抓住民生的一些重点、难点问题，一件一件的去做。现在大数据显示，这个一老一小的问题，就是老人养老服务、托幼服务有困难，这个确实应该引起我们的更高的重视。
You asked a fairly big question. Any issue related to people's lives is of paramount importance, and there are still a lot of things in this respect the government must do. We will continue to improve people's well-being in the process of developing the Chinese economy. We must put our focus on these key areas and major difficulties faced by our people. A big data survey suggests that issues related to aged and child care are still prominently felt difficulties for our people, and this must draw the close attention from the government.
现在中国老龄人口，如果60岁以上算的话，2亿5千万了；65岁以上1亿7千万；6岁以下儿童上亿，几乎他们的服务问题涉及到绝大多数家庭。但是我们这方面的供给是不足的。你像全面实施2孩以后，托幼难突出了。养老机构，我们现在能提供的服务，每100人3个床位，据有的大城市统计说，可能要到90岁以后才能进养老机构。当然，我说这话的意思是，现在我们即便继续加大养老机构、多功能幼儿园发展的力度，但跟不上老龄化的速度。
The number of senior citizens at the age of 60 or above in China has reached 250 million. the number for those at or above 65, 170 million. And there are up to 100 million children in China below 6 years old. Services targeting these populations are still woefully lacking, and they affect most of the Chinese families. In particular, the difficulty of insufficient childcare services is particularly acute after the implementation of the two-child policy. When it comes to aged care facilities, on average, there are only 3 beds for every 100 senior citizens. Some surveys suggest that in big cities, one would have to wait until 90 years old before he or she could get a place in a nursing home. The increase of need for such facilities is far lagging behind the increase of the aged population.
那怎么办？我到一些地方去调研啊，发现已经有好的经验，就是重点发展社区的养老托幼服务，这样呢，就近可及、普惠、公平，只要安全可靠，那么大家是欢迎的。所以我想啊，还是要创新机制，对接群众需求、社会力量，加大政府的扶持力度。比如说，提供公租房，让社会力量住餐、住行、日间照料、康复、老年大学等等免费入住，甚至可以给予水电气的费用减免，更可以减税、免税，因为他们实际上也是在帮政府共同解决民生之难。那么作为社区工作者，所以政府的有关部门那就要公平的准入，同时把主要的力量放在监管上，来确保这些服务是安全可靠的。对于那些违规的，那坚决逐出市场，让老人、孩子、家庭放心、安心。
How does the government plan to address this acute problem? In my local inspection trips, I have seen that some good experience has been gained in this respect. That is to vigorously develop community-based such service providers. If they can be accessible, quality services that are safe and reliable, they will certainly be very popular among the targeted populations. In this respect, the government needs to develop innovative mechanisms to better match up the market demand, the market supply, and our people's demand. The government also needs to provide policy support. For example, we may provide public rental housing units for private actors to use as venues for these facilities in providing assisted meal, assisted mobility, daycare, and even open senior college facilities. The government may also provide tax exemption or tax break for these service providers in terms of their expenses on water, electricity, and natural gas. These players are all working together with the government to address our people's actual needs. The main job of the government is to ensure fair market access and enhanced oversight so that these services will be both safe and reliable. In this way, we will be able to keep our senior citizens, our children, and all families reassured.
让老年人安度晚年，孩子们幸福的童年，那就是有一个千家万户都幸福愉悦的家庭。也可以让青年人啊，或者中青年人吧，用更多的精力去就业、创业。当然，关于民生的问题啊，还很多啊，我们会啊发现重点、难点，着力去尽力而为、量力而行的解决。
When our senior citizens have a decent life in retirement and our children have a nice childhood, all families will lead a happier life. And our young and middle-aged people may have greater energies to tap into their entrepreneurship and make innovations. I do recognize there are still a great deal of things for the government to do in areas related to people's lives. We will do our level best within the realm of our capabilities to tackle the key concerns and difficulties that our people face. Thank you.
好，谢谢。下一个问题，刘越。第四排中间这位男士，第四排。
Thank you. Thank you. I'm with Bloomberg News. Mr. Premier, a lot has been written about U.S.-China ties in the last couple of months, and most of it is either about trade, whether the U.S. and China can come to an agreement, or it's been about technology, and the U.S. saying that other countries should not use Chinese telecommunications equipment because it could be used to spy on them. There's probably not been as much suspicion and competition in the relationship since ties began some 40 years ago. I wanted to ask you, Mr. Premier, how would you describe the current state of U.S.-China ties? What's your outlook for the relationship? And also, if you could address some of the specific issues on trade, what kind of deal could China accept? What kind would China not accept? And on technology, would China force Chinese technology companies to help spy? Thank you.
彭博新闻社过去几个月，多数关于美中两国关系的报道都是集中在贸易以及中美两国是否能达成有关协议上，或者是集中在关于技术问题。同时指出呢，美国告诫其他国家不要使用中国的电信设备，因为这可能被用来对其进行监视。似乎自中美40年前建交以来，现在两国关系当中的猜疑和竞争比以往任何时候都更加严重。那总理先生，我想问您的问题是：您如何看待现在的中美关系？您对中美关系未来的走向持何看法？您能否简单谈及目前美中面临的一些具体的冲突点，比如说贸易问题，什么样的贸易协议中方可以接受，什么样的不能接受？那么在技术问题上，中国政府是否会迫使中国的有关企业帮助其监视他国？
你背景的描述和问题的提出都比较多，但你自己做了一个核心归纳，就是到底中美关系现在怎么样，未来怎么走？我认为啊，中美建交40年来，可以说是一直向前，取得了丰硕成果。在这个过程当中，曲折不断，风云变幻，但是向前走的大趋势没有改变，因为中美两国之间有着广泛的共同利益。我们的共同利益是远大于分歧的。那么，中美之间保持稳定的双边关系，不仅有利于双方，也有利于世界。我认为啊，曲折中前行，继续前行，这个大趋势 是不会也不应该改变。
There are several parts and layers to your question as well as the background that you gave, but you also summed them up to one thing, that is how to make up the current state of China-US relationship and how do I see the future of this relationship. I would like to say that China-US relationship has been forging ahead in the past 4 decades, and a great deal has been accomplished in the growth of this relationship. At the same time, it is true that the relationship has also gone through some twists and turns. But the underlying trend is for the relationship to be going forward, and this has not changed. This is because there is broad common interests between China and the United States, and their shared interests far outweigh differences. Steady growth of China-US relationship is in the interest of both countries. It is also something good for the whole world. So I anticipate this relationship will continue to forge ahead despite twists and turns, and that should be the underlying trend going forward.
当然，我们在保持中美关系总体稳定的同时一些矛盾纠纷也经常突出地表现出来。一段时间以来，表现比较突出的是中美经贸摩擦。但是中美双方进行磋商一直没有停。去年在 G20 峰会上，2国元首就达成了重要共识。现在我们的磋商还在继续进行。我们希望磋商能有成果，能够实现互利双赢。我相信呢，这也是世界的期待。
While maintaining the overall stability of China-US relationship, we have also seen that from time to time problems and difficulties may have appeared. In the past weeks and months, one prominent difficulty in China-US relationship is focused on their economic and trade frictions. Last year, during the G20 summit, presidents of the two countries reached important common understandings, and consultations between the two sides on economic and trade issues are still underway. We hope that good outcomes will be delivered out of those consultations, outcomes that work for both sides and deliver win-win and mutual benefit to the two countries. I believe that result is also what the whole world would like to see.
中美作为2大经济体几十年来的发展合作，可以说我们之间也是你中有我，我中有你。想人为的把这2大经济体隔开，那是不现实的，也是不可能的。我们还是应该本着合作总比对抗好，相互尊重、平等互利这个原则去推动中美关系包括经贸关系的发展，这样呢，可以使2国人民从中受惠。对于矛盾和分歧，我们相信中美2国人民是有智慧、有能力来进行化解、管控的，去推动符合世界潮流的中美关系稳定，并且向着健康的方向发展。谢谢。
China and the United States, as two large economies, have become closely entwined through years of growing their relationship and years of cooperation. It is neither realistic nor possible to decouple these two economies. I believe we need to continue to follow the principles of cooperation before confrontation, mutual respect, equality, and mutual benefit to continue to grow China-US relationship, including their economic and trade ties, to deliver concrete benefits to people of the two countries. As for the differences and disagreements, we have confidence that people of the two countries have the wisdom and capability to diffuse their differences and manage them properly to pursue steady and sound growth of China-US relationship that is in keeping with the trend of our time. Thank you.
谢谢，请继续提问。中区靠后面的第7排那位男士，那位男士。3号。
谢谢主持人。总理您好，我是新华社记者。2018年是中国改革开放40年，提出了改革要再出发。现在国内外对中国加快改革有许多新期待。请问总理，今年改革会有什么具体的行动？在优化营商环境方面会有哪些新举措？谢谢。
Xinhua News Agency. The year 2018 marked the 40th anniversary of China's reform and opening up, putting China's reform at a new starting point. There have been new hopes, both at home and abroad, for China to accelerate its reform agenda. I would like to ask you, Mr. Premier, what concrete actions will be taken to deepen reform this year? What specific measures will be adopted to improve China's business environment?
改革开放40年来中国发展取得了巨大的成就，惠及了亿万中国人民。这条路我们会继续走下去，而且应该越走越深入，越宽广。也就是说，我们要继续推进建设社会主义市场经济，继续坚持市场化改革的方向。政府要坚持推进市场化、法治化的改革，以实际行动、具体举措来让改革成果不断显现。
Through 40 years of reform and opening up, China has made remarkable achievements, delivering benefits to all its population. We intend to stay on this path and will pursue our reform at greater depth and breadth. We will continue to develop our socialist market economy and pursue market-oriented reforms in various respects. The government will continue to pursue market-oriented and law-based reforms to ensure that concrete outcomes will be delivered through specific actions.
政府的改革应该是更好的让市场在配置资源当中发挥决定性作用，也就是说要围着市场做文章，不是老给市场下指令你做什么，把市场的活力激发出来。所以这次我在参加两会的时候不少代表委员都提出来，希望继续优化营商环境。你给我们一个好的营商环境，公平的、平等的，我们就会去发挥自身的力量。应该说，我们这几年来通过反管服改革，营商环境的优化是取得成效的。去年有关几个国际组织的排名，把中国营商环境都提升了30多位。但是我在社会上听到的呼声是，有改善还不够，还有很大差距，或者较大差距。那么我们要倾听这种呼声，进一步的改善营商环境。营商环境好了， 市场的活力和社会的创造力就会释放出来。
In carrying out reform, the government must create an enabling environment for the market to play its decisive role in allocating resources. The job of the government is not to direct what the market should or should not do, but doing its best to energize all market players. During this year's two sessions, I have heard the hope expressed by many NPC deputies or CPPCC members for a better business environment in China. They told me that if there is a more enabling business environment and a level playing field, they will be in a stronger position to realize their potential. Over the years, through the reform of government functions, we have made impressive progress in improving our business environment. This has also been evidenced in the fact that China's global rankings in terms of ease of doing business, run by important international organizations, moved up by 30 spots. There has been improvement, but we are still falling short in some respects. We must listen closely to the views expressed by our market players and do our level best to help them release their vitality.
还是要放管结合并重，放就是要平等的放，不能搞三六九等。我们减少审批程序、办证的时间，应该对各类所有企业原则上是一律是同仁的。我们现在把企业拿执照的时间，经过几年的努力，已经从22天降到了8.5天，今年要力争降到5天，有的地方可以降到3天，那发达国家才1天啊。现在我到基层去调研，也有不少企业反映说，我拿到营业执照以后啊，还需要很多证，所谓准入不准营。那么我们就要采取措施，除了涉及公共安全、特种行业的之外，那都应该拿到营业执照以后就可以正常的经营。你政府的监管部门可以加强事中事后监管，在这个过程当中对企业的行为进行甄别、辨别，需要发展的发展，不符合资质条件的该注入市场注入市场。
By deregulation, we will ensure that companies of all types of ownership will stand to benefit as equals from our measures of administrative streamlining, including cutting the time required for companies to get business license or other required licenses and permits. There should be no discriminatory practices employed. For example, through years of efforts, we have cut the time required for getting a business license from the previous 22 days to the current 8.5 days. This year, our goal is to further cut it to 5 days, and in some places with better conditions, maybe 3 days. It only takes 1 day for one to get a business license in developed countries. When I visited some local areas, I heard complaints from business owners telling me that even with a business license, they still find confronted with a myriad of requirements for other types of permits and licenses. That is, their company can be up, but not actually running. So this year, we plan to ensure that, except for those areas involving public safety and security and other special sectors, a business license should be enough for a company to be both up and running. For government departments, their job focus should be on enhanced compliance oversight to see whether other related required permits will be issued, or the company, if committing non-compliance, should be banned from the market.
宽进叫严管呀，公平的准入，公正的监管，这是了之两义，不可偏废。如果我们监管不到位，那些坑蒙拐骗、侵犯知识产权、假冒伪劣恶意拖欠款项的行为，那就有可能肆意妄为。我听到这次会上一些政协委员就反映啊，他们遇到的是打官司难啊，讨债难啊，因为我们的监管不到。但监管呢，你还得把规则要公开，要透明，让被监管者知道自己该做什么，不该做什么。监管还不能搞选择性的、任性的监管，这样呢，形成一种放和管的制度性安排。
With broadened market access, there must be tightened oversight. There should be equal access to market and also impartial regulation. Laxity in regulation on the part of government will only leave space for those malpractices like cheating and manipulation, infringements of intellectual property, making and selling of fake or substandard goods, or unpaid wages go rampant. I have heard much complaint about this from the deputies and members during this year's two sessions. Hence, there is a need for improved and enhanced compliance oversight. In this process, we must ensure that all the rules are made fully open and transparent, so that our market players are fully aware of their do's and don'ts. We must not exercise selective or arbitrary regulation. We must enforce uniform standards and requirements in exercising our compliance oversight.
说到政府的规则、监管要公正，个人的隐私也要保护，这就使我联想到刚才彭博社记者提了一连串问题，其中有一个问题我还真得要明确的回答你。你说中国政府有没有要求自己的企业去监听他国的信息？我不知道是指的政府的还是公民个人的，反正有一条，这样做不符合中国法律，也不是中国行事的方法，现在不会有，将来也绝不会有。
When we talk about rules, when we talk about impartial regulation, we also need to protect the privacy of all individuals. That somewhat reminds me of one part of the question previously raised by the journalist from Bloomberg. I would like to very explicitly respond to that particular part in his question here. That is, he asked whether the Chinese government will ask Chinese companies to spy on other countries. I don't know if you are referring to the governments or individuals of other countries, but let me tell you explicitly that this is not consistent with Chinese law. This is not how China behaves. We did not do that and will not do that in the future.
回到新华社记者刚才关于营商环境的提问上，我可以这么说：减税降费和减政、公平监管，这是我们应对经济下行压力、激发市场活力 的2个重要的关键举措，目的还是要让中国经济行稳致远，而且活力四现。谢谢。
So coming back to the question about business environment from the Xinhua News Agency journalist, I want to say that tax and fee cuts, together with administrative streamlining and impartial regulation, these are the 2 very important parts of our measures to counter the downward economic pressure and boost market vitality. The purpose is to ensure steady and sustained growth of China's economy, an economy full of vigor and vitality. Thank you.
谢谢，请继续提问。南区第4排的那位男士，第4排那位男士，没错，
总理您好，非常感谢给台湾最具代表性的新媒体 ET Today 东森新闻云一个提问的机会。我想请教的是，今年年初，习近平总书记在告台湾同胞书40周年的纪念活动上有重大的讲话，在两岸也引起非常大的关注。当然，外界也非常好奇说，大陆今年会具体怎么会去贯彻跟落实？举例来说，像是在促进两岸的共同发展以及两岸人民的福祉上面。谢谢。
With ETV Today of Taiwan, early this year, President Xi Jinping gave an important speech at the meeting commemorating the 40th anniversary of the issuance of the message to compatriots in Taiwan, and that important speech received close attention from people on both sides of the Taiwan Strait. My question is, how will the mainland implement the policies and propositions set out in that important speech, in particular to promote the common development of the 2 sides of the Taiwan Strait and improve the well-being of people on both sides?
今年年初啊，习近平主席在今年告台湾同胞书40周年的纪念会上发表了重要讲话，阐述了我们关于台湾问题的大政方针、原则立场。我们还是坚持一个中国的政策和9·2共识，反对台独，促进两岸和平稳定发展，促进祖国和平统一。两岸同胞可以说是同根同系我们愿意出台更多的优惠政策，让台湾同胞在大陆不论是投资兴业，是就业就学，是生活居住，都能够享受到和大陆同胞同等待遇。我们已经出台了促进两岸经济文化合作交流的31条举措，现在的问题是要把这31条举措扎扎实实的落到位，而且在这个过程当中还应当有新的举措，因为两岸同胞共享发展的机遇，走得越近越好，两岸关系的发展也会越好越实。我们都希望能够共圆中华民族的共同的梦想和愿望。
Indeed, early this year, General Secretary Xi Jinping gave an important speech at the meeting commemorating the 40th anniversary of the issuance of the message to compatriots in Taiwan. In the important speech, he articulated our principles and policies on the Taiwan question. We will continue to adhere to the One China principle and the 1992 consensus and oppose Taiwan independence. We will continue to work to promote peaceful growth of cross-strait relations and the peaceful reunification of our motherland. People on both sides of the Taiwan Strait are bound by kinship. We intend to introduce more preferential policies toward our compatriots in Taiwan to ensure that they will enjoy the same treatment as mainlanders when they come to work, study, live, do business on the mainland. Previously, we introduced 31 measures for promoting cross-strait economic and cultural exchanges. These measures must be fully delivered. In this process, new measures should be introduced as well. When people on both sides of the strait enjoy the same development opportunities and come closer to each other, the growth of cross-strait relationship will go stronger and make more solid progress. We need to work hand in hand to realize the dream for our nation that we both share.
谢谢。
谢
Thank
谢
you.，
请继续提问。中区第五排那位男士，哎，
谢谢，总理您好，我是人民日报的记者。去年以来，一些企业存在这个裁员的情况，有的这个内外资企业开始向境外转移，还同时也有一些企业反映吧，同时也有一些企业反映，他们想招一些这个合适的技术工人，但很难。所以，请问总理，您将采取哪些政策措施来推动这些问题的解决？谢谢。
People's Daily. Starting from last year, some companies have started to trim staff. Some Chinese and foreign invested firms have started to relocate their businesses overseas. We have also heard complaints by companies about a shortage of skilled workers. My question is, Mr. Premier, what measures will the government adopt to resolve these problems?
看来你确实感受到就业是个难题啊，因为中国现代化进程当中，就业会始终是一个巨大的压力。我们每年新增城镇就业劳动力1500万，未来几年不会减，而且呢，我们还要给几百万的农民工提供打工的机会。今年我们确定要确保就业人数在1100万人以上。实际上，我们做的盘算是要实现和去年同等规模的，也就是1300万人以上的就业。所以我们把这个就业优先的政策首次和财政政策、货币政策并列为宏观政策。财政和货币政策，不管是减税还是降低实际利率水平，都是在很大程度上是围绕着就业来进行的。有了就业，才会有收入，才会有社会财富的创造。
Seems that you have also felt the difficulty of ensuring employment in China. Indeed, in China's modernization process, there will always be tremendous employment pressure. In recent years, on average for each year, some 15 million new entrants enter the labor force, and that figure will not decrease in the foreseeable future. In addition, we also need to provide job opportunities for several million rural migrant workers to land jobs every year. This year, we plan to create another 11 million new urban jobs, and in actual practice, our goal is to generate the same amount of job opportunities as we did last year, that is over 13 million. You may have also noticed this year, for the first time, we are elevating the status of the Job First policy to a macro policy, together with our fiscal policy and monetary policy. The tax and fee cut measures under the fiscal policy, as well as cutting real interest rates under the monetary policy, are all designed to ensure employment in our country. When there is a job, there is income, and there is increase in social wealth.
我们说，保持经济运行在合理区间，首先是要保就业，不许划出合理区间。 就是不让出现失业潮，那我们要多策并举。你像这些重点人群呀，要继续保障他们就业，像毕业大学生、复转军人、转岗职工等。那今年的高校毕业生又是834万，比去年还多啊，历史新高。我们还要确保啊。 不出现零就业的家庭，对那些容纳劳动力比较多的企业要给优惠支持。我们还推动创新、创业、创造，提供大众创业、万众创新更广泛的平台，来提供更多的就业岗位。就业好不好？ 这本身是经济好不好的一个重要的体现。
Keeping our major economic indicators within a proper range is first and foremost about ensuring employment and preventing a surge in unemployment. To do that, we will apply a combination of measures, including ensuring employment for key groups of people like college graduates, demobilized military personnel, and laid-off workers. This year, the number of college graduates will reach another new high, 8.34 million. We also need to prevent zero employment families. For those companies that hire more, the government will provide more policy support. In the meantime, we will expand the platforms to encourage business startups and innovation. The state of employment very much suggests how our economy is faring.
我们在讲就业政策的时候啊，政府工作报告主要是讲保障城镇新增就业劳动力。这里我想特别强调一下农民工。中国现在有2亿8千多万农民工，而且每年是以100万级的数量在增长。他们是许多产业行业的主力军。农民的收入大部分已经来自于打工收入，他们身后啊，可以说有无数家庭的期待。讲到这里啊，我就想起2年前到我国东北一个中心城市的建设枢纽工地上去考察，有一个印象，至今是挥之不去。那寒冷的天地里，农民工在施工，其中有一位农民工跟我岁数差不多大，我和他对话，他希望一条多加班，多挣钱。我说为什么？他说他的一个孩子考上了重点大学，他要用钱让他安心的学习，并且学习好。我从他的眼神里面呢，看到了他对下一代、对未来的这种期待。我就想，我们中华民族几千年生生不息啊，这40年来有如此巨大变化，教育的确是起了巨大的支撑作用。所以我们要 善待农民工啊，不仅要给他们提供打工的机会，而且要保障他们应有的所得。现在不时发生农民工欠薪的问题啊，我们要立法规，要坚决打击那些恶意欠薪的，要确保农民工不光有打工的机会，而且他们的合法权益必须得到保障。要看到他们的身后无数家庭的希望。谢谢。
In the government work report, we set out a specific target for creating new urban jobs. Here, I would like to make a special mention of our rural migrant workers, which now is numbered at about 280 million, and that figure is still increasing by several million each year. These rural migrant workers are a leading force in a lot of industries and sectors of our country, and for their income, those income from non-farming jobs is a very important component, and that carries the hopes of a lot of families. One thing I can never forget is that 2 years ago I was visiting a local transportation project construction site where I met some rural migrant workers. It was on a cold winter day, and I was talking to one of the workers on the construction site. He said to me that he wanted to work longer hours so that he could earn more money. I asked him why. He said that his child was just enrolled into a key university, and he wanted to earn more to fund his college tuition fees. In that person's eyes, I saw his hopes for a better future. Indeed, education has been an important underpinning force that keeps our Chinese nation going for several thousand years, that has made it possible for us to come this far in the past 40 years of reform and opening up. These rural migrant workers must be treated with kindness. There have been instances where their wages cannot be paid in full and on time. The government will formulate a related regulation to crack down on such malpractices, to ensure that the lawful rights and interests of all rural migrant workers will be fully protected. The government must not fail the hope of all their families. Thank you.
下一个问题。Garcia，第3排这位男士。
Good morning. I'm Javier Garcia from the Spanish news agency EFE. So the trade war with the United States, in case that continues, could represent an opportunity to improve the relationship between Europe and China, or will have only negative effects? And in any case, what do you expect of the relationship between Europe and China this year? Thank you.
西班牙爱飞社记者，考虑到美中现在之间的贸易战，您认为这对欧中关系的发展是机遇，还是只会带来负面影响？您如何看今年的欧中关系？
中美贸易摩擦啊，这是中美双边的事情，我们不会利用第三方，更不会去损害第三方。中国和欧盟啊，一个是世界上最大的发展中国家，一个是世界上最大的发达国家的联盟。中欧可以说都是世界多极化的重要一极。中欧关系的发展不仅有利于中欧， 有利于世界。
The China-US trade friction is an issue between China and the United States. We will not exploit any third parties. We will not target or hurt the interests of any third parties. For China and the EU, China is the largest developing country in the world, the EU the largest union of developed countries in the world, and both are important poles in a multipolar world. A growing China-EU relationship serves the interests of both China and the EU and the world.
当然，中欧是互为最大的贸易伙伴，我们之间有合作，也有摩擦，曾经和现在都存在，但是呢，我们长期以来积累了化解分歧摩擦的一些经验，这些经验呢，我认为还应该继续的沿用。其中很重要的就是中欧之间应该增强互信。现在我们正在推进中欧投资谈判，实际上是想让双向投资更加开放。这样做呢，让双方都受益，当然是要公平的受益。我觉得双方都要以开放的心态看待对方。我们在合作当中去妥善的化解分歧，让我们的中欧关系稳步前行。不久，也就是下个月，我就要去欧盟总部和欧盟领导人共同举行新一轮的中欧领导人对话。我希望通过这个对话，让双方都从战略的长远的高度去看待中欧关系，都用相互尊重、互相理解的推动合作的心态去促进中欧关系健康稳定发展。谢谢。
China and the EU are each other's biggest trading partners. There has been cooperation as well as frictions in our relationship. Over the years, we have gained good experience in managing our differences, and I believe such experience should continue to be applied. One very important piece of the experience is to deepen our mutual trust. The two sides are now advancing negotiations on a bilateral investment treaty. The purpose is to further facilitate the two-way flow of our investment, to see that the two sides will benefit on an equal footing from this agreement. I believe that we need to view each other's development with an open mind and continue to properly handle our differences in the course of pursuing cooperation for continued steady growth of our relationship. Pretty soon, actually next month, I'm going to visit the EU headquarters and hold the next round of China-EU summit with the EU leaders. I hope that both sides will view this relationship from a strategic and long-term perspective and continue to show mutual respect, deepen our mutual understanding, and advance cooperation in joint pursuit of sustained healthy growth of our ties. Thank you.
谢谢，请继续提问。中区第3排那位女士。
好的，谢谢主持人。总理你好，我是中央广播电视总台央视的记者。之前您也谈到了在民生领域还有很多的事情要去做，所以接下来呢，我特别还想提到一个有关医疗方面的问题。因为我们也注意到现在老百姓看病难、看病贵，享受不到优质的医疗资源的问题还是比较突出的，尤其是那些得了大病的患者，给他们的家庭带去了很沉重的负担。所以我在这儿想请问总理的是，在解决这些问题上，政府还有哪些有效的举措？谢谢。
China Central Television. Just now you said, Mr. Premier, that there are still a lot of things for the government to do in areas relating to people's livelihood. My question concerns medical care services. It seems that quality medical resources are still somewhat inaccessible and quite expensive. In particular, a serious illness could cause heavy burdens on related families. I would like to ask, what specific measures will the government take to tackle this problem?
看病啊，确实是重要的民生问题，尤其是大病，是民生的痛点。看病贵、看病难的问题，在我们国家的确存在。这几年来，我们经过努力，不仅在建立向全民提供基本医疗保障的基础上，由政府和居民共担购买了大病保险，建立了大病保险的机制，这是可以缓解大病患者，特别是困难群众负担的一个重要举措，在世界上也应该是一个创举性的工作。
Accessing quality medical resources is indeed a key issue related to people's lives, and a serious illness treatment is truly an acute pain felt by our people. There does exist the problem of inaccessible and quite expensive medical care in our country. I would like to say that over the years, we have been able to provide basic medical care services to cover our entire population. In addition, we have also established a scheme for serious illness insurance with a cost-sharing format between the government and individuals. This is a quite creative step the Chinese government has taken.
去年我们就听到许多关于抗癌药贵的呼声，我们通过减税等多种办法，让17种降癌药降价50%以上，而且纳入医保，让癌症患者，特别是困难群众，大大减轻负担。这方面的事情看来我们是能做的就应该做的。
There have been complaints about expensive cancer drugs. So last year, through various means, we managed to cut the prices of 17 cancer drugs by 50% and included them into medical insurance schemes. This has significantly eased the financial burdens on the patients of serious illness, and this shows that the government must do its level best in resolving people's concerns.
今年我们要做2件这方面的事，并且要尽力。就一是把这个高血压、糖尿病这慢性病患者的用药50%纳入报销。现在我们国家有4亿高血压、糖尿病患者，我到基层去调研有一些人告诉我，他们得了这种病，1天3顿不能断药，负担很重，有的把养老金的相当一部分用来买药了。所以我们要解除或者说缓解这个民生之痛。另一方面呢，就是要提高大病保险的起付线，提升大病保险的报销标准。我们要巩固14亿人都进入大病保险了，但是呢，要让更多的人，上千万的人能够直接受益。因为我们这个大病保险呢是有倍数效应的。我们要看到我们的医保虽然覆盖 全民，但是水平不高，尤其是我们的农民啊，人均收入年1.5万，遇到大病靠自己扛是很难的，所以政府和社会啊要共同出力，缓解这个民生之痛啊，没有健康就没有幸福。谢谢。
This year, the government plans to take 2 major steps. We will make the outpatient drugs for chronic diseases like high blood pressure and diabetes reimbursable and set the reimbursement rate at 50%. These chronic diseases affect some 400 million Chinese nowadays. And when I talked to some of those patients, they told me that they have to take drugs 3 times a day, and a lot of their pension benefits have been spent on these drugs. When it comes to serious illness insurance scheme, we will lower the payout threshold and raise the reimbursement rate so that this scheme can truly produce amplifying effects to benefit as many people as possible. Although we have established a medical care safety net that covers a large population, the level of actual benefits is still not high. For example, for Chinese farmers, their average per capita annual income is only 15,000 yuan. So it would be very hard for one to just rely on himself or herself to cover serious illness treatment expenses. The government and private actors must work together in this respect to meet people's health needs. Without health, there would be no happy life for our people. Thank you.
好，谢谢。下一个问题，常青。
谢谢总理您好，亚洲新闻台记者提问。总理，去年以来，中国政府多次表示中国将越来越开放，但有些评论认为中方口惠而实不至，缺乏实际行动。那今天外商投资法已经全国人大表决通过，也有舆论表示担心或质疑，认为这部法律的特别加速通过，大部分只是对美国压力的回应，而且部分法律条款的模糊性也给了中国政府灵活掌握的空间，降低了投资者对实际效力的期望。请问李总理，您对此有何回应？中国政府将推出哪些具体可落实的政策呢？谢谢。
China News Asia of Singapore. From last year, the Chinese government has taken a series of steps to further open China up. However, there have also been analysis arguing that the Chinese government is actually somewhat short on concrete actions of opening up. We have seen that the foreign investment law has just been adopted at this year's MPC session. Yet there is also worry that the exceptional swift adoption of this piece of legislation is only in large measure a response to pressure from the United States, and that the ambiguity of some legal provisions will only provide the Chinese government further wiggle room for self-discretion and compromise the actual effects for the enforcement of this legislation. So my question is, what specific measures will the government adopt to ensure full enforcement of the law?
对外开放啊，是中国的基本国策，让中国人民普遍受惠，也有利于世界，我们何乐而不为？开放的措施说出去了，当然要兑现。你像去年，我们一些重大基础设施放开外资投入的股比，有很多重大项目落地了。我们去年仍然是世界上发展中国家当中最大的外来投资国，中国会继续听取各方面的意见，来使它保持对外开放热土这样一个温度。
Opening up is China's fundamental state policy. It has delivered real benefits to the Chinese people and has benefited the world. So why won't we go ahead with it? If we make a promise on opening up, we will certainly deliver. For instance, last year we lifted foreign ownership restrictions in some areas, including infrastructure, and we have seen the delivery of a number of major projects in these respects. And last year, China still remained as the largest recipient of FDI among all developing countries. Going ahead, we will continue to listen closely to the views from various parties, and will keep China open.
刚才闭幕的全国人大已经通过了外商投资法。这个法是要用法律的手段来更好地保护外商的投资，吸引外商的投资。这个法律也可以说是规范政府行为的，要政府依法行政，而且政府要根据这个法律的精神，要出台一系列的法规文件来保护外商的权益，比如包括什么信息投诉机制啊，怎么公开、透明、有效。一段时间以后啊，这是我们要做的很重要的事情，会推出一系列的有关法规和文件，让它可操作。
This MPC session adopted the Foreign Investment Law. This piece of legislation is designed to use legal means to protect the rights and interests of foreign investors and attract more foreign investment in China. This law will also regulate government behaviors, requiring the government to perform its functions in accordance with law. The government will introduce a series of matching regulations and normative documents to protect the rights and interests of foreign investors. For example, the establishment of a complaint filing regime and a mechanism for information disclosure to keep things open and transparent, etc. These will be the important things for the government to do in the following weeks and months to see that this law will be truly operable.
我们要实行准入前国民待遇和负面清单制度，那就要推出新的负面清单。这个新推出的负面清单做减法，而且以后还要逐步做减法。也就是说，我们的非禁植入的范围会越来越大。那么还要加强对知识产权的保护。我们建议要修改知识产权保护法，引入惩罚性的赔偿机制，发现一起就要处理一起，而且呢，要让侵犯知识产权的行为无处可寻。当然，我们也希望外国政府公正地看待中国企业和国外企业的双方合意的合作。总之，今年对外开放的举措，我们会不断地推，继续的推。我多次讲过，中国开放的举措不是一揽子放出来的，它是每年甚至每个季度都在出。回过头来看，那 就是想象不到的巨大变化。谢谢。
We will continue to implement a management system of pre-establishment national treatment plus a negative list. We will soon release a newly revised negative list, which will become shorter. And going forward, we will further shorten our negative list, which will mean that more areas will be opened up for foreign investment. We will also enhance protection of intellectual property. In this respect, we will propose to make revisions to relative laws governing intellectual property protection. We will introduce a mechanism of punitive compensation to ensure that all infringements of intellectual property will be seriously dealt with, and such infringements will have nowhere to hide. We also hope that foreign governments can view in an objective light the cooperation between Chinese companies and their foreign partners based on contractual consent. In a word, China will further open up, and China's opening up measures will not come on a one-time basis, but will be introduced quarter after quarter and year after year. In hindsight, when we review the course of China's opening up, we would have recognized how much tremendous a change that has brought to this country. Thank you.
谢谢，请继续提问。北区第5排那位男士，第5排。
谢谢。光明日报全媒体记者提问：总理您好，去年以来，央行几次降准，降低了金融机构的成本，但是企业依然反映融资难、融资贵，看得见够不着。请问，在促进金融服务实体产业方面，政府将采取哪些举措？谢谢。
Guangming Daily. Last year, the central bank cut required reserve ratios several times, meaning to lessen financial burden on companies. However, companies still feel there is difficulty in accessing affordable financing, and they have yet to feel the actual results of those policy adjustments. What measures will be adopted to ensure there will be better financial services for the real economy this year?
服务实体经济这是金融的天职，但是现在确实我们面临着实体经济，特别是民营经济和小微企业融资难、融资贵的问题。去年我们采取了一系列措施，遏制了融资难、融资贵上升的势头。虽然我们是4次降准，其目的还是降低金融机构本身的成本，让这些资金呢流向民营经济和中小微企业。今年呢，我们要多策并举，多管齐下，抓住这个已经是卡脖子的问题，制约了经济的发展、市场的活力，让小微企业的融资成本在去年的基础上再降低1个百分点。
Serving the real economy is the bounden duty of the financial sector. However, there does exist the problem of inaccessible and expensive financing for, in particular, private businesses and small and micro companies. Last year, we took a number of steps to curb the fast rise in the financing cost faced by our companies. The central bank cut required reserve ratios 4 times to reduce costs for financial institutions so that more money will be able to flow to our private companies and small, micro, and medium-sized companies. This year, we will take a multi-pronged approach in this respect to significantly ameliorate this problem that is actually seriously constraining our economic development and the vitality of our market. Our goal is to further cut the financing cost for micro and small companies by another 1 percentage point this year.
我们说，我们对外开放是自主的抉择，而且我们要引入竞争中性的原则，也就是说，对所有外国的外资一视同仁的对待。那同样，对中国国内各类所有制企业都应该一视同仁。现在在贷款问题上，的确需要清除一些障碍，引导和规范我们的企业改善自己的内部管理机制，多跑民营企业、小微企业，为他们降低融资成本，减少不合理的费用，来处理小微活，经济才活，就业才多。
As China takes its own initiative to further open up, we will adhere to the principle of competitive neutrality and treat both domestic and foreign invested enterprises as equals. Likewise, we also need to treat all businesses under various types of ownership as equals. As far as lending is concerned, there do exist some problems and obstacles. We need to encourage financial institutions to enhance their internal management system and provide more services to private companies and to small and micro firms to meaningfully lessen their financing cost. When micro and small companies are vibrant, our economy will be full of life and energies, and there will be a stable employment situation.
当然我们也时刻注意防范系统性的金融风险。对于那些不具备生存条件的张氏企业，不会给他们新的贷款。对违法违规的所谓金融行为该制止的制止，该打击的打击。我们完全可以守住不发生金融风险的底线，加强金融服务和防范金融风险是相辅相成的。
In the meantime, we also need to forestall systemic financial risks. No new loans will be made to zombie companies which are no longer solvent, and illegal and non-compliant activities will be seriously dealt with. We have the confidence of forestalling the emergence of systemic financial risks, the enhancement of financial services, and prevention and forestalling of financial risks are mutually reinforcing.
谢谢。
Thank you.
下一个问题，安德烈。第二排这位男士。
李总理您好，我是儿童社塔斯社的记者。今年是俄中建交70周年。在两国关系发展史中具有里程碑的意义。去年俄中双边贸易历史上首次突破1000亿美元。您认为今年俄中关系和经贸合作会有哪些新的突破？谢谢。
TASS. This year marks the 70th anniversary of diplomatic relations between Russia and China. It is of milestone significance in the history of relations between our two countries. Last year, for the first time, two-way trade exceeded $100 billion. What new breakthroughs do you foresee for the growth of Russia-China relations, and in particular their economic and trade cooperation this year?
中俄互为最大邻邦，中俄保持良好稳定的关系，不仅有利于双方，有利于地区，有利于世界。今年是中俄建交70周年，70年来啊，中俄关系走过了不平凡的路，现在可以说是高水平了。我们的政治互信不断增加，人文交流也在不断深化。特别是刚才你提到，去年在世界贸易下行的情况下，我们中俄之间的贸易额突破了1000亿的规模，这可以说是一个新的标志。下一步，我们还可以拓展领域，因为这本身表明我们之间的合作有很大潜力。我们既可以抓大，也可以推小，抓大项目、大宗商品贸易，推小微企业，包括跨境电商的合作，既可以上天，在航天航空领域合作，也可以下地吧，推这个地方民间的交流，就是要把能用的18万武器都用起来，来使中俄经贸的规模在1000亿的水平上把它稳定住，并且向翻番的目标迈进。谢谢。
China and Russia are each other's biggest neighbors. A sound and stable China-Russia relationship serves the interests of the two countries, the region, and the world. This year is the 70th anniversary of diplomatic ties between the two countries. In the past 7 decades, our relationship has traveled an extraordinary journey, and today it has reached a very high level, featuring deepening mutual political trust and growing people-to-people exchange. In particular, as you mentioned, in spite of the downturn in global trade growth last year, trade between our two countries exceeded for the first time $100 billion. That shows there is still much untapped potential in our business ties, and we need to work together to further expand areas of our cooperation. For example, we may continue to focus on our big project cooperation and trade in commodities. We may also enhance cooperation between our smaller firms and cross-border e-commerce platforms. We may enhance collaboration in aviation and aerospace, and also enhance exchanges at the subnational level and between our peoples. In a word, we need to make use of all possible means at our disposal to first keep our $100 billion two-way trade stable, and then work further to double it as possible. Thank you.
谢谢，请继续提问。中区第4排这位女士。
谢谢，总理你好，我是澎湃新闻的记者。您一直在强调要大力发展互联网+，发展共享经济，但是去年发生了一连串的负面事件，您对此怎么看？下一步政府对规范发展共享经济有什么新的举措？谢谢。
The paper. You have been calling for the growth of the Internet Plus and the sharing economy. However, we also saw a series of serious problems appear last year. What measures should be adopted to better regulate the growth of the sharing economy?
互联网+共享经济，也可以说是一个 平台经济，它作为新事物，和任何新事物一样，总会是发展当中有利有弊。但是从总的看，它带动了就业，方便了群众，而且呢，推动了产业的发展。你像电商、快递、移动支付，大家都有感受，众人做事既重智既重利，众人共享。
The Internet Plus and the sharing economy can also be viewed as a platform economy. Like other things, they also have their upsides and downsides. On the upside, they have added new jobs and made life easier and more convenient for our people. They have also driven China's industrial development. For example, the growth of e-commerce, express delivery services, and mobile payment has made life more convenient for our people. When collective wisdom and strength is pulled, all stand to benefit.
对于这种新业态、新模式啊，我们不能简单任性，要么不管，要么管死。所以我们这几年来一直采用的是叫包容审慎的原则。包容就是新的事物，我们已知远远小于未知，要允许它发展，在发展当中出现问题，加以纠正。
For these new forms of business and new business models, we must not exercise arbitrary regulation and oversight, either letting them be or shutting them down as soon as problems appear. Our choice over the years is to exercise accommodative and prudential regulation. By accommodative, we need to recognize that what is known about new things is always much less than what is unknown about them. So they should be allowed a good chance to grow and develop, and the government needs to detect and redress any possible problem that comes along the way.
所谓审慎监管，那就是要画出安全的底线，也不允许打着互联网加共享经济的招牌搞招摇撞骗，还是给创业者提供一个能够成长的空间，给企业有一个发展新动能的新的动力。那么在这个过程当中，我们需要的是公平的准入，公正的监管。新的事物嘛，在市场力量推动过程当中啊，它本身要靠市场，要由市场来优胜劣汰，政府呢也要进行公平公正监管。愉快和烦恼啊，总是在成长当中伴随。我们要做的就是引导他们健康成长。
By prudential regulation, the government needs to draw a clear bottom line involving public safety and security, and no one should be allowed to use the Internet Plus and the sharing economy as an excuse or means for cheating and manipulation. In this way, our purpose is to foster an enabling environment for all entrepreneurs and provide our companies good opportunities in developing new drivers of growth. In a word, there should be access to the market on equal footing, and there should be impartial regulation on the part of the government. In market competition, the fittest will survive. And with impartial regulation, good rules will be enforced. There will be some growing pains in the growth of new things. The job of the government is to provide them with proper guidance.
其实，互联网经济、共享经济、平台经济还有很多发展空间。你就是电商、快递对农产品下乡，工业品下乡，农产品进城，它还可以起进一步搞活流通的作用。在工业领域推动工业互联网，可以把那些闲置的机床带动起来，而且促进技术创新。在社会领域，这个用武之地就更大了，像互联网加医疗健康加养老助幼加教育，那可以连通许多方面尤其是让偏远地区、农村的群众、家庭、孩子，让他们能够享受到，或者是能够看得见，通过互联网看得见优质的学校、医院、优秀的教师、医生来帮他们解决实际的问题。这方面的例子就很多了，我看过不少互联网加医疗诊断加教育的实例，所以它本身也在释放着市场的活力和社会的创造力。
The Internet Plus and the sharing and platform economies have great roles to play in different facets of our industries and lives. For example, e-commerce and express delivery services have made it possible for industrial goods to reach rural areas and for quality agricultural produce to be delivered to urban households. In this process, we may also encourage technological innovation and put to better and more efficient use of idle production equipment. In the social sector, they have also made a difference. For example, they have enabled the sharing and connectivity of different medical, healthcare resources, educational resources, and other services so that even children and aged people and other populations living in rural, remote areas can find quality hospitals, doctors, teachers, and other resources accessible. There are many such concrete examples, and their development has further energized our market and unleashed public creativity.
谢谢。
谢谢，请继续提问。南区第3排这位女士，这位。
感谢总理好，我是来自香港凤凰卫视的记者。其实我的问题呢，还是继续有关于外商投资法，但是角度会有些不一样，因为我们特别关注到这个外商投资法当中，并没有涉及到港澳台的投资。我想这可能会让港澳台各界会有一些不太理解啊。另外，我也仔细听了你刚刚有关于对外开放的一些表述，其中没有谈到港澳台。这会不会表明中央政府在看待港澳台的地位、对待这个港澳台的投资上面会有一些调整呢？谢谢。
Phoenix TV, a question about foreign investment law, but from another perspective. I have noticed that the investment from Hong Kong, Macau, and Taiwan is not addressed in the foreign investment law. This may make some people from these three regions feel hard to understand. And in your comments about China's opening up, you also did not mention what measures would be adopted towards Hong Kong, Macau, and Taiwan. Does that mean that there will be certain adjustment to the policies of the central government regarding the status of these three regions and investment from them?
香港和澳门呢是中华人民共和国的特别行政区，海峡两岸同属一个中国。我们历来高度重视港澳台的投资，港澳的境外到内地的投资，占我们利用境外投资的 70%，能不重视吗？我们会进一步发挥好港澳作为单独关税区和自由港的作用。我刚才对台湾记者也说了，我们会为台胞来大陆投资兴业创造优惠的条件。
Hong Kong and Macau are China's special administrative regions, and the two sides of the Taiwan Strait belong to one and the same China. We have all along attached high importance to investment from these three regions. Investment from Hong Kong and Macau on the mainland accounts for 70% of all paid-in investment on the mainland. So how can we not set store by investment from these two regions? We will further harness the advantages of Hong Kong and Macau as separate customs territories and free ports. When I was addressing the question from a Taiwan journalist, I also said that we are going to create more favorable conditions for business people from Taiwan to invest on the mainland.
我这里要明确港澳台投资是可以参照或者比较实用刚刚通过的外商投资法。而且我们长期以来行之有效的一些制度安排和实际做法还要继续沿用，不仅不会影响，应该是有利于吸引港澳台的投资。国务院在制定有关法规或者推动制定有关政策性文件的过程当中，会认真听取港澳台同胞的关注意见，切实保护好他们的合法权益，也欢迎有更多的港澳台境外投资。谢谢。
The foreign investment law may be used as a reference in relation to investment from these three regions. Moreover, the institutional arrangements and actual practices that have long been in place and proven effective will go on and will not be affected. We hope that they will work to attract more investment from Hong Kong, Macau, and Taiwan. The State Council will formulate related regulations and policy documents. In this process, we will listen closely to the views of our fellow Chinese from Hong Kong, Macau, and Taiwan to see their lawful rights and interests duly protected. Investment from these three regions is most welcome. Thank you.
我查一下，这个时间过得很快。记者会的时间也差不多了，我看是不是请总理再回答最后2个问题，好吗？好，再给大家一些机会吧。
Time flies. Maybe 2 final questions.
好，中区第6排中间的那位男士，第6排，哎，对，这位男士。
感谢主持人，总理您好，我是中国日报的记者。那我们注意到呢，从去年开始，国内消费的增速出现了持续下滑的一个状态，可以说呢是内需不振。但是我们同时也看到，有上亿的中国人走出国门，到海外去消费。那么，请问总理，政府将会出台一些什么样的措施来进一步提振国内消费？谢谢。
China Daily. Last year, the growth of China's domestic consumption trended downward, and domestic demand was flagging. However, at the same time, hundreds of millions of Chinese chose to travel overseas for shopping. My question is, what measures will the government take to boost domestic consumption?
的确一段时间以来，我国的消费出现增速放缓的趋势。消费和民生可以说是一个硬币的2面，我们需要 合理的投资规模和消费的增长。当然，消费需要有收入支撑，但同时也要看到我们的消费当中啊，确实还存在着不少堵点，有些障碍，应该去解决，这样有利于消费，也有利于改善民生。
It is true that the growth of China's domestic consumption has been declining for some time. Consumption and people's well-being are like the two sides of the same coin. There needs to be a reasonable increase in investment and consumption. Consumption, although in a certain sense driven by increase in income, we should also recognize there are still obstacles that constrain the growth of domestic consumption that must be resolved. If we can further resolve these problems, it will also help improve people's lives.
比如这几年公路的出行运输不断增加，政府工作报告提出2年内要基本来取消省界的高速公路收费站，大家都很赞成。这样做有利于来解决拥堵问题，也有利于许多产业的发展。这个目标我们确定了，但是我们要力争，也要求有关部门要提前实现。
We have seen an increase in travel by roads in recent years. In this year's government work report, we set the goal that within 2 years, we will eliminate almost all expressway toll booths at provincial borders. And that has proven to be a very popular policy initiative. It will not just ease traffic congestion, but also help with the growth of many related industries and sectors. In actual practice, we will endeavor to achieve this goal ahead of schedule.
比如网络的提速降费，这几年我们连续在做，有利于消费者，其实也有利于产业的发展。今年要在过去的基础上再降20%，我让有关方面测算，他们要让利1800亿给消费者，还要求他们必须做到可以消费转网，这样去倒逼那些不明不白的套餐消费让我们的企业改善服务，也促进产业本身提质升级。
In recent years, we have also worked to raise the speed and cut the rates of internet services that has benefited our consumers and boosted the growth of related industries. This year, the goal is to cut the rates by another 20%, and that will involve some 180 billion RMB yuan. At the same time, we require that it should be made possible for cell phone users to switch their telecommunication service carriers without changing their phone numbers. At the same time, our consumers should also be kept fully informed about those telecom service packages. This will force all our telecom carriers to further improve their services, and it will also help to upgrade the whole industry.
再比如，我们要今年再降工商电价10%，那不仅要让工业企业受惠商业企业也同样。特别是我们现在电商有上千万家，6亿多消费用户，那个电商是24小时营业的。我去看过，他们说计算机耗电的费用压力不低那降低了就可以让利给消费者也可以促进产业的发展，这是一举多得的事情。
We also plan to cut the prices of electricity for general industrial and commercial companies by 10% this year. When it comes to e-commerce platforms, there are some up to 10 million in China with 600 million users. And e-commerce platforms run 24/7, and these computers consume a lot of electricity. So when electricity price is cut for these companies, it will also help it will also make it possible for our consumers to benefit more and transform and upgrade the related industries.
其实消费当中有很多制度性的堵点，应当消除，或者说减少，这可以激发消费的潜力、市场的活力、社会的创造力。我们有关方面要眼中有活做明白人，办贴心事。
We must endeavor to ease and even eliminate all these institutional barriers that constrain consumption. This will unleash our development potential, energize our market players, and unlock public creativity. All government departments must be fully aware of the concerns of the people and do their best to meet our people's expectations.
谢谢。
Thank you.
好，最后一个问题，高橋。
感谢最后一个问题的机会。李克强总理您好，我是来自日本经济新闻社的记者。我们知道，中国今年是中银行首脑峰会的主席国。李克强总理，您是今年峰会的主席。那么，作为主席，您认为本次峰会将重点讨论哪些问题？当前在世界范围内贸易保护主义抬头的背景下，我觉得中日韩 FTA 也将成为峰会的主题。那么您认为这个中日韩 FTA 什么时候能够签署？另外呢，对中方而言，区域全面经济伙伴关系协定 RCEP 和中日韩 FTA 哪一个是优先考虑的对象？谢谢。
Nikkei. China is the chair of the China-Japan ROK summit mechanism this year, and Mr. Premier, you will be the chairperson of the trilateral summit. As the chairperson, what do you think will be the focus of the discussions at the summit? In the backdrop of a growing trade protectionism in the international environment, my feeling is that the trilateral FTA may become a focus of a discussion this year. When can this FTA be signed? And for China, between the RCEP and the China-Japan ROK FTA, which is a higher priority?
今年是中日韩领导人会晤机制20周年，中方担任主席国，我们会和日方、韩方去共同商讨会议的议题。刚才记者朋友应该说问的还是很敏锐的我认为这个议题当中应当包括推动中日韩自贸区建设，特别是在当前世界贸易保护主义的抬头的大背景下，推动中日韩自贸区建设，建设一个全面的、高水平的、互惠的协定，对三方都有好处。虽然现在日本和韩国对中国是比较大的贸易利差，但是我们还是愿意进行平等的竞争， 让消费者有更多的选择。我相信呢，在这个过程当中会使优势互补，各方得益。至于说中日韩自贸区和 RCEP 哪一个先达成，我想那要看我们各方所做的努力了。不管是哪一个协议能够先达成，中方都乐见其成。
This year marks the 20th anniversary for the establishment of the mechanism of leaders meeting among China, Japan, and the ROK, and China will be the chair of the mechanism this year. We will discuss with Japan and the ROK to work out the agenda of this year's leaders meeting. You made a sharp observation in your question. I too think that the FTA development among the three countries should be put on the agenda of the leaders meeting. In particular, given the larger international environment of growing trade protectionism, the development of an FTA among these three countries and arriving at a comprehensive, high standard and mutually beneficial agreement is in the interest of the three countries. Although Japan and the ROK run a pretty large surpluses in their trade with China, China is still prepared to compete with them on a level playing field so that consumers of the three countries will have more options. In this process, I believe it is important for us to draw on each other's comparative strengths so that we can all stand to benefit. As to which one will be concluded first, the China-Japan ROK FTA or RCEP? I think that depends on the efforts made by the parties concerned, and whichever will be concluded first, China takes an attitude that welcomes such development.
因为最后一个问题了，我还想再说一下，中国不仅重视和东北亚的关系，比如刚才我还回答了。韩国记者的提问，表示中国作为负责任大国，会继续在推进半岛无核化当中发挥建设性作用。我们还重视和东南亚和中国所有周边国家的合作。我们希望一个稳定的周边环境，亲诚惠容，而且我们也愿意把“一带一路”的倡议和有关国家的发展战略相对决，中国将坚定不移地走和平发展道路，坚定不移地做地区、世界和平和发展的维护者、贡献者。谢谢各位。
As we come to the final question, let me also add that China pays attention to its relations with Northeast Asian countries. Just now I addressed a question from the ROK journalist saying that China will continue to play its constructive role for the denuclearization on the Korean Peninsula. But not just so, we also pay a great deal of attention to our relations with Southeast Asian countries and all our neighbors indeed. We hope to have a stable neighborhood and we will continue to follow the principles of amity, sincerity, mutual benefit and inclusiveness in developing relations with those countries. We will work with them to enhance the complementarity between China's Belt and Road Initiative and their development plans. In words, China will stay on the path of peaceful development and will continue to be a positive force and a contributor for regional and global peace and development. Thank you.
好，感谢李克强总理，感谢各位的光临，招待会到此结束，谢谢大家。